Everyone, welcome to this month's edition of our Black History Month Book Buzz. My name's Betty, and I'm here with Meg Miller. We're going to be covering adult fiction, nonfiction, and graphic novels by Black authors. But before we get started, we just have a few events to share for readers. This is our Romance Reader Social. It's in its 18th year this year. It's going to be on Valentine's Day. We have over a dozen romance authors, crafts, and different activities. Our adult reading challenge will be wrapping up on February 28th for those of you participating. If you haven't started logging your reading yet, there's still time. Just see our website for details. And our spring book buzz will be on March 5th. This is our second annual literary costume ball coming up in April. We have a live DJ, photography, crafts, and there will be several bookstores in attendance, so you can get a mini book fair. This is after hours and it's adults only. I'm going to get started with our fiction titles. First up, we have The Star Seekers. In the 1960s, the world was caught up in reaching beyond our planet and into the cosmos. It felt impossible, but there was nothing science, math, and magic couldn't make possible. The race to space was on, and the moon was what everyone had their eyes on, including Cynthia Rhodes, a brilliant arcane engineer at NASA's Ainsworth Research Labs. Talented in math and magic, she hosts a magical education show, a job she took mostly for a chance to regularly see the dashing Theodore Danner, a professor of arcane archaeology. She's also an amateur sleuth, something that has run in her family for generations. The Star Seekers is another rip-roaring adventure for the Rhodes family, who have been using magic to aid their community and solve mysteries since before the Civil War. The times may have changed, but a Rhodes once again finds themselves thrust into a world of murders, theft, sabotage, and curses. And this time, the stakes extend to the stars themselves. And next, we've got an adventure novel, Fire, Sword, and Sea. The Caribbean Sea, 1675. Jacquot de la Haye is the mixed-race daughter of a wealthy tavern owner on the island of Tortuga. Instead of marriage, Jacquot dreams of joining the seafarers and smugglers whose tall-masted ships cluster in the turquoise waters around Tortuga. She falls in love with a pirate, but when he returns to the sea, Jacquot decides to make her own way. In Haiti, she becomes Jacques, a dock worker, earning the respect of those around her while hiding her gender. For the next 20 years, Jacquot raids the Caribbean, making enemies and amassing a fortune in stolen gold. When her fellow pirates decide to increase their profits by entering the slave trade, Jacquot turns away from piracy and the pursuit of riches. Risking her life in one deadly skirmish after another, she instead begins to plot a war of liberation. Up next, we've got Humble Cut, a gothic horror. Jasmine Bay is a nurse for an Oakland mental health facility, battling her own demons, caught in a spiral of suicidal despair. Estranged from her brother James and his wife Tilly, who was once her best friend, Jazz has chosen self-isolation to protect herself, even if it means denying herself a hopeful future with coworker and potential love interest Henry Lewis. When her godmother dies, Jazz returns to Red Cedar for the funeral, a logging town where her grandfather, William Whipple, made a living deforesting the countryside, ripping apart nature's very foundations for corporate profits. As trees fell to axes and chainsaws, so did dozens of lumberjacks, falling prey to the dangers of their job and to the eco-terrorism of Jazz's grandfather. And buried in the haunted woods are even more dark secrets perpetrated by Jazz's family. Unnatural acts giving birth to entities made of human flesh and petrified bark, seeking to avenge the devastation that ravaged their land. It is an inheritance that threatens to consume the remnants of Jazz's family and her very sanity. Something more lighthearted, we have a romance, Skate It Till You Make It. Ari Shumba never expected to make it to the Winter Games, let alone be the one to lead Great Britain's women's ice hockey team through the most important competition of their lives. When her teammate's unexpected injury catapults her to the role of captain, Ari reluctantly shoulders the responsibility while trying to navigate family drama and dodge her toxic ex. Drew Domini has always feared taking risks. After breaking up with his girlfriend and dropping out of college to handle a family crisis, he's desperate for a fresh start. When he finds himself in London for the holidays, he rekindles his dream of becoming a professional photographer. When Ari and Drew meet at a New Year's Eve party, neither of them is looking for love. Though their chemistry is instant, they live on opposite sides of the Atlantic, so they spend the night revealing their glaring red flags thinking they'll never see each other again. But when they unexpectedly cross paths in the snowy Swiss Alps 2 months later, their feelings for each other rise to the surface. As the competition heats up, the combination of complicated exes, over involved families, and stress inducing teammates convinces them that the perfect solution to their problems is to fake date their way through the games. After all, there's no risk of falling in love if it is doomed from the start, right? And another horror novel, this one from Bethany C. Morrow, The Body. Mavis broke from her parents' congregation years ago, but she still hasn't recovered. Their impossible expectations and soul shredding critiques have dug deep into her mind, and she's taunted by the knowledge that even when she's done nothing wrong, she'll never be right. Now Mavis is afraid she's about to lose the only thing she has, her husband Jared. The man she's always known was too good to be true. No one thinks she deserves him, not even after surviving the serial cheater they wanted her to stick by, and soon they'll all find out they were right. Mavis is already unraveling when a brush with death shows her what real fear looks like. Soon she's under constant attack from all directions. As the assaults turn increasingly vicious and bizarre, Mavis realizes that hell isn't reserved for the afterlife, and sinner or not, no one is coming to save her. And next up we have Fireflies in Winter. Nova Scotia, 1796. Cora, an orphan newly arrived from Jamaica, has never felt cold like this. In the depths of winter, everyone in her community huddles together in their homes to keep warm. So when she sees a shadow slipping through the trees, Cora thinks her eyes are deceiving her, until she creeps out into the moonlight and finds the tracks in the snow. Agnes is in hiding. On the run from her former life, she has learned what it takes to survive alone in the wilderness. But she can afford no mistakes. When she first spies the young woman in the woods, she's afraid. Yet Cora is fearless, and their paths are destined to cross. Deep among the cedars, Cora and Agnes find a fragile place of safety. But when Agnes's past closes in, they're confronted with the dangerous price of freedom and of love. With evocative prose and immersive storytelling, Fireflies in Winter is a powerful novel about love. Love for the wilderness in all its unforgiving beauty, and love between two women who risk everything to be together. And another historical novel, we have Keeper of Lost Children. Ethel Gathers, the proud wife of an American officer, is living in occupied Germany in the 1950s. After discovering a local orphanage filled with the abandoned mixed-race children of German women and Black American GIs, Ethel feels compelled to help find these children homes. Philadelphia-born Ozzie Phillips volunteers for the recently desegregated Army in 1948, eager to make his mark in the world. While serving in Mannheim, Germany, he meets a local woman, Jelka, and the two embark on a relationship that will impact their lives forever. In 1965 Maryland, Sophia Clark is given an opportunity to attend a prestigious all-white boarding school and escape her heartless parents. While at the school, she discovers a secret that upends her world and sends her on a quest to unravel her own identity. Toggling between the lives of these three individuals, Keeper of Lost Children explores how one woman's vision will change the course of countless lives and demonstrate that love in its myriad of forms, familial, parental, and forbidden, even love of self, can be transcendent. Right now we have Cleopatra. You know her name, but you do not know her. Your historians call her seductress, but she was ever in love's thrall. Your playwrights speak of witchcraft, but her talents came from the gods themselves. Your poets sing of her bloodlust, but she was always protecting her children. How woefully they refused to concede that a woman could be powerful, strategic, and divinely blessed to rule. Death will silence her no longer. This is not the story of how she died, but how she lived. And Tayari Jones has a new book coming out at the end of this month called Kin. Vernice and Annie, two motherless daughters raised in Honeysuckle, Louisiana, have been best friends and neighbors since their earliest childhood, but are fated to live starkly different lives. Raised by a fierce aunt determined to give her a stable home in the wake of her mother's death, Vernice leaves Honeysuckle at 18 for Spelman College, where she joins a sisterhood of powerfully connected Black women and discovers a world of affluence, manners, aspiration, and inequality. Annie, abandoned by her mother as a child and fixated on the idea of finding her and filling the bottomless hole left by her absence, sets off on a journey that will take her into a world of peril and adversity, as well as love and adventure, culminating in a battle for her life. a novel about mothers and daughters, friendship and sisterhood, and the complexities of being a woman in the American South. Kin is an exuberant, emotionally rich, unforgettable work from one of the brightest and most irresistible voices in contemporary fiction.
First up for me, Where the Wildflowers Grow, from acclaimed author Tara Shelton Harris, comes a poignant story of survival and redemption that questions what it means to stop existing and start living. Lee is the last of the wilds. She knows this because she watched them all die. Grief never truly fades, and even as the tragedy haunts her, Lee carries on because survival is in her blood. So when the transport bus taking her to prison careens off the road, killing everyone on board except her, she does what's in her nature. She survives. While searching for a place to hide, Lee stumbles upon an unexpected sanctuary, a flower farm in rural Alabama tucked away from the world. What Lee doesn't expect is the found family there who have built something from the wreckage of their own lives, especially Jackson, the farm's owner, who sees through Lee's defenses, offers her small moments of tenderness, encourages her to face her own tragedies. Slowly, Lee finds peace with the hard pace and soft nature of the farm, taking comfort in the life blooming around her. Maybe she's not beyond redemption, not too broken for something good. And maybe, just maybe, Lee starts to heal. But the past isn't so easily buried. No matter how far she runs, the truth of who she is and the ghosts of the wilds follow. And when those secrets catch up to her, threatening everything she's come to love, Lee will have to truly face what she can survive. And here, a girl like her from Talia Hibbert, she's hard to hold on to, but he's good with his hands. Prickly, autistic, and shadowed by a scandalous past, Ruth Kaba will always be Ravenwood's black sheep. It's a lonely life, but at least it's safe until Evan Miller comes to town. Calm, confident, and instantly accepted by their small English town, Evan is Ruth's opposite in every way. Yet he meets her suspicion with a smile, handles her awkwardness with ease, and watches her with a hunger that threatens to tear down all her defenses. The gossips want to know how she's bewitched him. Ruth just wants to know when he'll get bored and leave. Because if there's one thing she's learned, it's that girls like her don't get happily ever afters. But when a monster from Ruth's past comes back to haunt her, she's forced to make a choice. Should she trust Evan completely, or is her heart safest alone? And another romance for me, struck speechless in April. Sports agent Jackie Miles is a petite powerhouse who has built her empire on killer instincts, designer stilettos, and tough skin. Her client roster is legendary, her temper is hotter than Georgia asphalt, and aside from her French bulldog Pee Wee and her boss chick Village, she's perfectly content flying solo. Then Antonio Steele walks back into her life, and all hell breaks loose. The towering former football star turned rival agent has always known exactly which buttons to push. Just when Jackie thinks she can handle their explosive chemistry and complicated past, she mysteriously loses her voice. But this isn't ordinary laryngitis. A cryptic stranger's message implies that Jackie must quiet her tongue and listen with her heart to lift whatever spell she's under. With a career defining client trip to Mexico looming and only the devastatingly handsome Antonio as backup, Jackie must learn to let go if only she can trust him to catch her. Struck Speechless is book 2 in the Boss Chick Village series following the hit rom com Losing Sight. And in June, we have Fairfield County, a sweeping family saga about inheritance and the enduring legacy of Southern Black cowboy culture, from the acclaimed author of Redwood Court, which was a Reese's Book Club pick. A sprawling landscape of sand, red clay, and pine trees, South Carolina's Fairfield County is the only place the Bolton family has ever called home. For more than a century, they have cultivated this land, expertly raising horses to compete in derbies and rodeos and passing their knowledge from generation to generation. But after a devastating tragedy, Dwayne, the next inheritor of the Bolton legacy, buries his family history, particularly from his daughter. Unlike her father, Nikki is a proud, burgeoning horsewoman with no knowledge of her family's connection to the part of her life that she's most passionate about. But when a series of events threatens to sever father and daughter from the only land they've ever known, Dwayne is forced to confront his past so that Nikki can step into her future. With nuance and care, Delana R.A. Dameron deftly examines her most beloved subjects, the intricacies of family and the powerful forces that shape who we are. Fairfield County is at once a moving exploration of the ties that bind us and a bold reclamation of the American cowboy, taking this iconic image out of the whitewashed Old West and deep into the heart of the Black South, where it has always resided. And from a familiar name, Colson Whitehead's Cool Machine. This is from the Harlem Trilogy. Number one New York Times bestselling author and two-time Pulitzer winner Colson Whitehead, and is an exuberantly entertaining novel that brings to life 1980s New York in the magnificent final volume of his Harlem Trilogy. First, 1981, New York City is beginning to emerge from financial ruin and decline. Energized by rampant real estate development and a Wall Street unchained by Reagan-era predatory capitalism, up in Harlem, successful business owner slash master fence Ray Carney has just been named Sterling Furniture's Dealer of the Month. When the banks won't give his beloved wife Elizabeth a loan for her new travel agency, however, Carney gambles on one last heist and finds himself entangled with a legendary criminal mastermind. 2 years later, 1983, to some, Carney's friend and partner in crime, Pepper, is a stone-cold sociopath. To others, a top thief with questionable people skills. Either way, he's feeling his age in his troubled gut and his aching bones. When he takes on a bodyguard gig as a favor to Elizabeth, he's plunged into the alien territory of the East Village Art Club scene. Luckily for him, whether you're uptown or down, everyone speaks the same language of violence. Pepper is a native speaker. And 1986, Carney has always been haunted by his inability to save his cousin Freddie. Now, 20 years after Freddie's death, he has a chance to rescue Freddie's son from the violent forces of the city. But coming out of retirement and teaming up with Pepper again will mean risking the safety and security he's spent decades building for his family, with only one shot to get it right. With his usual pitch-perfect prose, Whitehead paints a portrait of a city in transition, where shimmering skyscrapers rise to the heavens as displaced people huddle in abandoned tunnels below. In a dazzling display of protean imagination, Cool Machine roves all over the city, from windows of on the world to the Meadowlands, to show that in New York and in the lives of Whitehead's vivid characters, it's what's below the surface that reveals the truth. And one last title for me coming in August, The Marriage Rebound. This is a spicy sapphic romance. The story centers on WNBA player Courtney Johnson, whose successful basketball career conflicts with her home life, leading to marital strain with her wife, Sasha. When a broken arm sidelines Courtney, they get unexpected time together, forcing them to confront their issues and work as a team to save their marriage, hinting at a spicy, emotional second chance.
Now I've got a few nonfiction titles, and first up is this travel guide by Moon, the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. Visit historical civil rights sites and learn about Dr. King's legacy at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. Be transformed at the small but mighty Emmett Till Intrepid Center, and stand tall with Little Rock 9 at their memorial in Arkansas. Get to know the voices, stories, music, and flavors that shape and celebrate Black America both then and now. Take a seat at a lunch counter where sit-ins took place, or dig into heaping plates of soul food and barbecue. Spend the day at museums that connect our present to the past, or spend the night in the birthplace of the blues. Award-winning journalist Deborah Douglas offers her valuable perspective and knowledge, including suggestions for engaging with local communities by supporting Black-owned businesses and seeking out activist groups. Plus, find driving directions for exploring the sites on a road trip, and tips on where to stay. We have a collection by Toni Morrison, Language as Liberation. In a dazzling series of lectures from her tenure as professor at Princeton University, Toni Morrison interrogates America's most famous works and authors, drawing a direct line from the Black bodies that built the nation to the Black characters that many of the country's canonical white writers imagined in their work. Morrison sees these fictions as a form of creation and projection, arguing that they helped manufacture American racial identity. These Africanist presences are the shadow that makes light possible, as Morrison writes, and the reflections of their authors' own deepest fears, insecurities, and longings. To read these lectures, collected here for the first time, is to encounter Morrison, not just the writer, but also the teacher, in the most penetrating and subversive way yet. With a foreword by her son, Ford Morrison, and an introduction by her Princeton comparative literature colleague, Claudia Brodsky, Languages Liberation is a revelatory collection that promises to redefine the American canon. And we've got some history here that was written by NPR investigative journalist and the daughter of a Tuskegee Airman, Cheryl W. Thompson, Forgotten Souls. In 1945, World War II ended one of the deadliest conflicts in history. Geared for battle were nearly 1,000 trailblazing black pilots trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfield, an unrepentantly segregated facility in Alabama. Hailing from the Iowa cornfields to the Texas Gulf Coast to the tobacco plantations of North Carolina, the Tuskegee Airmen already proved, under the toughest circumstances, to being the most resilient and defiantly patriotic men of the Army Air Corps. 27 of them disappeared during the final critical missions in Europe. So too would the government's efforts to find them, or help to bring closure to the loved ones that the valiant 332nd Fighter Group left behind. Cheryl W. Thompson delves into the true stories of the black combat pilots who faced unimaginable racism before, during, and after the war, from a military that told them they were less than, even as their courage and aviation prowess saved scores of white brothers in arms from the enemy and possibly death. As cruel as war itself could be, the family, friends, communities, and fellow Tuskegee Airmen who mourned the lost pilots never imagined how unforgivable it could get. After 80 years, Forgotten Souls honors the impact they made and the sacrifices they endured on America's behalf. Next up, we have the Mixed Marriage Project. Dorothy Roberts grew up in a deeply segregated Chicago of the 1960s, where relationships barely crossed the color line. Yet inside her own home, where her father was white and her mother a black Jamaican immigrant, interracial marriage wasn't just a part of her upbringing, it was a shared mission. Her father, an anthropologist, spent her entire childhood working on a book about black-white marriages, a project he never finished, but that shaped every aspect of their family life. As a 21-year-old graduate student, Dorothy's father dedicated himself to the study of interracial marriage, and her mother soon became his full-time partner in that work. Together over the years, they interviewed over 500 couples and assembled stunning stories about interracial marriages that took place as early as the 1880s. Studying but also living, championing, and believing in their power to advance social equality. Decades later, while sorting through her father's papers, Roberts uncovers a truth that upends everything she thought she knew about her family. Her father's research didn't begin with her parents' love story. It came long before it. This discovery forces her to wrestle with her father's intentions, her own views about interracial relationships, and where she fits in that story. Rather than finish the book her father never published, Roberts immerses herself in their archive of interviews to trace the story of her parents and to better understand her own. Blurring the boundaries between the political and the personal, between memoir and history, the Mixed Marriage Project is a deeply moving meditation on family, race, identity, and love. And Ibram X. Kendi has a new book coming out in March, Chain of Ideas. Recall the words chanted in Charlottesville, Virginia. You will not replace us. Recall the string of mass shooters across the globe in Oslo, Christchurch, Buffalo, El Paso, and Pittsburgh who claimed their crimes were a defense against white genocide. Recall business and media figures cultivating anxiety and fear over demographic change. These incidents only scratch the surface. Popular and ruling politicians in every region of the world have expressed some version of great replacement theory, eroding democratic norms in the name of preventing democratic change. In Chain of Ideas, internationally best-selling author Ibram X. Kendi offers an unsettling but indispensable global history of how great replacement theory brought humanity into this authoritarian age and how we can free ourselves from it. And Brandy has a memoir coming out at the end of March called Phases. From the moment she sang in church in Macomb, Mississippi, Brandy knew her voice was special. At 14, she landed her first record deal. At 15, her album went platinum. At 16, she was starring in the hit sitcom Moesha and became the first black actress to play Cinderella on screen alongside fairy godmother Whitney Houston. Yet as the accolades piled up, so too did the pressure to maintain a flawless image. To onlookers, she had crafted the blueprint for the teenage it girl, but behind closed doors, the vocal Bible, as she was known, was struggling. Now for the first time, Brandy reveals the real story behind her life in the spotlight. The stratospheric highs and the unimaginable lows, the groundbreaking moments, and the relatable journey she had to take to discover her authentic self as a woman, a mother, an artist as Brandy. Brandy's debut memoir is a fearless and remarkable story of hope, resilience, and the strength it takes to make peace with the past. And finally, we have the cookbook Gather. In Gather, anthropologist Ashante M. Reese argues for a new vision of food justice that centers the resilience of Black communities and argues that community nourishment deserves as much consideration as individual health. From Black church networks and community farms to student protests, the studies she offers illuminate ways we can challenge structures of power and nourish ourselves, body and soul. In a world of social isolation and unequal food systems, Gather offers a compelling argument for the beauty and political power of togetherness.
All right. And to close us out, I have some graphic novels, two that are in the collection, two that we just ordered, and two that we have to look forward to. Starting with Black Arms to Hold You Up, A History of Black Resistance. This is a New York Times Best Graphic Novel of the Year and New York Public Library Best Book of the Year. From the Ignatz and Eisner Award winning cartoonist Ben Passmore comes a whirlwind graphic history of Black life, taken by force. It's the summer of 2020, and downtown Philly is up in flames. You're not out in the streets with everyone else? Ronnie asks his ambivalent son Ben, shambling in with arms full of used books, the works of Malcolm X, Robert F. Williams, among others. Black liberation is your fight too. So begins Black Arms to Hold You Up, a boisterous, darkly funny, and sobering march through Black militant history by political cartoonist Ben Passmore. From Robert Charles's shootout with the police in 1900 to the Black Power movement in the 1960s to the Los Angeles and George Floyd uprisings of the 1990s and 2020. Readers will tumble through more than a century of armed resistance against the racist state alongside Ben and meet firsthand the mothers and fathers of the movement whose stories were as tragic as they were heroic. What, after so many decades lost to state violence, is there left to fight for? Deeply researched, vibrantly drawn, and bracingly introspective, Black Arms to Hold You Up dares to find the answer. Next up, we have an Eisner winner, All Negro Comics, America's first Black comic book. The first comic ever created by African Americans for African Americans. Three-quarters of a century ago, Orrin C. Evans led a team of cartoonists to create the first comic book anthology of original Black characters created by Black talent, with the expressed purpose of entertaining while rejecting harmful stereotypes and pushing boundaries in the industry. This was only 8 years after Action Comics #1, 6 years after Captain America #1, and a whole 19 years before Black Panther hit the pages of the Fantastic Four. All Negro Comics #1 should be among these revered moments in comic book history, but the original print run was quickly removed from newsstands and faded into obscurity, remaining largely unknown for 75 years, until now. All Negro Comics 75th Anniversary Edition preserves that history for generations to come, containing All Negro Comics #1 in full and digitally remastered for clarity, several essays for historical context and contemporary reflection, as well as news stories by Black writers and artists of today, featuring the original characters. And something we just recently ordered, When I Lay My Vengeance Upon Thee. Father Barrera is a disgraced priest haunted by his part in the tragic death of a child. As penance, he is exiled to the remote South American island town of Puerto Cristina to apprentice under the enigmatic Father Stygian, controversial exorcist. Exorcists are normally trained in the Vatican, but Stygian has his own way of handling demons, methods that predate even the church. As Barrera seeks to unlock the mysteries of Stygian strained practices, he uncovers an island rife with evil and supernatural phenomena. What do these possessions mean, and how are they connected to a mysterious hospital patient, one who's been in a coma for nearly half a century without aging a single day? Rising star author Gus Moreno, whose debut novel, This Thing Between Us, was awarded a Best Book of 2021 recognition by NPR, joins forces with visionary artist Jacob Rebelka for a mesmerizing and thrilling descent into hell itself. And Bitchcraft. Three modern witches must parley with ancient gods and battle supernatural forces to stop a biblical entity from ascending to godhood. Unaware their resistance plays perfectly into their enemies' plans. Adriel of the All Seeing Eye, a pretentious oracle who speaks with the gods. Michelle of Mother Earth's Flesh, a nature witch with a tender heart. M of the Living Hellfire, an emo necromancer with a sharp tongue. These three friends are bound together through magic and blood as a queer coven in New York, each following their own magical path under the watchful eye of their spectral coven matriarch mother. When the coven accidentally sends all of New York into a supernatural eclipse and sends the magic of the city into imbalance, their presence is revealed to a religious zealot and their angelic beast of retribution. Not only that, they soon discover they are at the center of an ancient prophecy, and all of which kind hangs in the balance. Now, each of them must face the secrets of the past, present, and future in order to save the magic. Created by the late Aaron Reese, Bitchcraft is a love letter to queer friendship, black magic, and the found families that sustain us. Enter the magical world of Bitchcraft and remember, God save the witch. And two upcoming titles, first with Theodora's Letters, an enslaved woman's fight for family and freedom. This is inspired by the powerful true story of Teodora de Coignea Diaz. Eisner Award winner Deslates reconstructs a forgotten part of Brazil's dark history of slavery. In the mid 19th century, millions of Africans were enslaved and brought to Brazil. Among them was the real live Teodora, who, separated from her husband and her son, worked in the home of a priest in Sao Paulo. Wishing to reconstruct the family ties lost during the journey from Africa to Brazil and to achieve emancipation for herself and her family, she gave Claro, a black man who could read and write, money to help her write letters, some addressed to her husband and her son, whereabouts unknown, in the hopes that the letters would find them and that they could achieve this quest together, and some addressed to enslavers, intended to either help locate her family or to persuade them to let her buy her freedom. Inspired by this correspondence, Theodora's Letters is a rigorously researched historical work, a compelling narrative based on her letters and masterfully drawn, who graphically recreating her struggle. In the 1860s, Bene, a fictional black young man who likes Theodora because she was kind to him, takes it upon himself to seek Tio's family and deliver the letters. He embarks on a dangerous and world building journey into the interior of Brazil and to the coffee plantations where they might be. There are many wordless passages of heartbreaking horror, character beats, breathtaking drawings of nature, and much more. In Teodora's Letters, Deslate reconstructs a forgotten part of Brazil's dark history of slavery and pays tribute to the strength of a woman who fought for her rights single handedly. Includes educational and contextual material. And one more title, one I'm really looking forward to. So this is Crownsville. Sins of the past don't stay buried. They always find a way of rising from the grave. From Eisner Award nominated writer and master storyteller Rodney Barnes and phenomenal artist Elia Bonetti, enter a century spanning tale of suspense and sorrow as true crime meets shocking terror inside an infamous asylum with a tortured past. Founded at the turn of the 20th century, outside of Annapolis, Maryland, the Crownsville Hospital was a notoriously segregated all black psychiatric institute. After decades of overcrowding and neglect, alongside darker, more persistent rumors of patient abuse and illegal medical experiments, it was finally closed. Today it stands condemned, a crumbling testament to a legacy of all too real terror inflicted on a marginalized and vulnerable community. But even as a ruin of its former self, Crownsville still casts a long shadow. When an unexplained death inside the abandoned hospital is ruled a suicide, Annapolis police detective Mike Sims and journalist Paul Blair are compelled to dig deeper, only to discover the reality of the horrors that once took place there, and the powerful connection they share to the anguished spirits of the dead that are still locked within its walls. Actually used to drive past those abandoned buildings on my way home from work at a previous job. Creep. All right.
And that is all for new titles, but in case you missed it, these are some books by Black authors that were featured in Book Buzzes in 2025 that you can look for at the library. And it is time for our giveaway. So the Friends of the Library donated 4 $25 gift cards to Black Pro Books. Thanks to them for that. So just tell us a title by a Black author that you're looking forward to checking out. It doesn't have to be from this presentation, it can be anything on your list. Just email it to me by 12 p.m. on February 6th, and that afternoon I will do the drawing and notify all the winners by email. Thank you so much for joining us. You can email us with questions, comments, concerns, suggestions. And we look forward to hearing from you. Happy Black History Month.